Sometimes you have to go into the dark in order to see the light. Sometimes you have to go into the dark in order to see the light. And that's what we're doing now with contemporary technology. And that's also what people do when they meditate, and when people go into trances. And when people get away from all the wondrous and crazy the lives that we live, filled with all of this external sensation, light and sound and touch and taste and so on, we go into a super quiet state. It's like we're going into the darkness. And then we have the capability to see the more subtle information that's there all around us, but during the day we don't notice.
Gary, you had John Edward write your foreword.
That's correct.
He's, one of the world-renowned mediums.
Right.
Was it difficult getting to him? Are you friends with him?
Well, John is a very Airflight Experiments book, and it was he and his guide, supposedly, because he called me from an airport, and he said, Gary, my guides are telling me that you've got to write a book. You've got to write it now. In fact, I started writing the Airflight Experiments book because John insisted upon it. I mean, I didn't do it just because he said it, but I did it because I knew that he was right, that the story needed to be told, the data were too important, they needed to be collected and put forth in a way that people could understand, and so on.
I met a psychic in 1990, and stuff came through her, all of which has turned out to be true. And one of the things that was said to me through her was, well, it said I was going to go out on the world stage and reveal great secrets and all that stuff. And what are you talking about? I'm a television presenter. But one of the things it said was, the message said, no need for arduous searching. It was all basically arranged a long time ago. The path is set. You just have to follow the clues. And when I look back at the last 20 years of my life, and you must look at yours too, going back even longer in terms we're talking about, it has been like puzzle pieces just handed to you. And that's not happened for a bit of fun. Okay, I've handed you a few puzzle pieces, and so you know a bit more. Okay, it's over now. No, it's leading somewhere.
I was shown in multiple readings that the actual process of raising that kundalini is collapsing the chakras together into this set of nested spheres. Because when you do that, you focus everything into the one pot in your brain that we're going to go through here. So this is bringing all your chakras together and then finding that channel so that the entity that's trying to reach you, or your higher self, can get to the center. Because the center is where all the action happens. Why is that? Well, the center of your brain has a small gland in it called the pineal gland, which, as you can see here, it was called pineal because it's shaped like a pine cone. This is the exact geometric center of your brain. It's right here. And this, as we're going to see, is very important in ancient cultures. The Sumerians gave it a description, which you can see here, the little acorns on the top of the staff that he had. And there's also a little jobber up here. Revelry, Bacchus. You can see he has the goat-shaped ears here. They're kind of demonic almost looking. And he also has the cloven feet. But then look at this. What's that? There it is again, huh? There's that pine cone. So once again, why do you think alcohol, hard liquor, is called spirits? Think about that for a minute. Because it opens the door to these influences. And the ancient people knew that. That's why they were called spirits. You've ever seen people who get like completely possessed when they're drunk and they just seem different? They seem a lot more negative. Well, negative entities in some cases seem to be able to grab hold through the pineal gland. And so they knew about all this. They knew that drunkenness and revelry opened up the pineal. That's why he's got it on the top of his staff. Dionysus, who is the usher through the underworld, the usher through death and rebirth, he's also got the pineal gland, the pine cone on his staff. So there's the same message yet again. And here's another image of Dionysus with a bigger pine cone. So let's not leave out Buddhism. Check that out, right? Same exact thing once again, the hair. That's another symbol of the pineal gland. And even the fact that it looks like a pine cone with these South American potions like yopo and ayahuasca, which is the one you're probably more familiar with. The actual dictionary definition of what DMT does is that it includes profound time dilation, time travel. This is when you're accessing the time field, right? Time's three-dimensional. It's no longer linear. You can shift time. Journeys to paranormal realms, that's like those fairy circles, the gnome circles, right? And encounters with spiritual beings or other mystical transdimensional modalities. All right, so there's the shape of it once again. Now, what's the big secret? The interior is filled with water. How does that seem like a big secret? Who cares? Why would it matter that there's water inside the pineal gland? Well, those of you who were here yesterday know the answer. The interior of the pineal gland, the water flips in and out through time-space. We'll get to that in a second. The problem, too much refined fats, refined sugars, refined flours, white flour. Anything in moderation is okay. I'm not saying you got to go on a totally Spartan, crazy diet. But this calcification is also what the Bible calls the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is on the forehead, right? Everybody remember that from the Bible? And what was it supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean that you're captured in the grip of materialism. Well, that means that you don't have your spiritual access open. That's the symbolism. Symbolism is when you look at the chakras, you actually see a dark spot up here. So that's where that comes from. Now this is where it starts getting very, very strange.
In 1984, Gabriel Green channeled a specific message from Ashtar regarding the imminent return of the Aquarian Age Christ. And Ashtar informed Green that the second coming of the Christ will occur when a spaceship makes its first public landing. The Christ will, of course, be on board. Interesting. Now, I've talked a lot about channeling. And channeling is one method of contact with these so-called extraterrestrials. It's going on at an alarming rate today. But to fully understand what channeling is, we have to define the three types of channeling. And the first type of channeling is called full-body channeling. And it occurs when the soul of the human individual leaves his or her body, and this unseen entity or supposed extraterrestrial literally takes over and possesses. It incarnates the individual's body, utilizing it as its own. Now, this is very similar to demonic possession. Now, in New Age circles or UFO literature, these entities are often referred to as walkings or star seeds. These are important terms to remember because once you see those terms, you'll know exactly what they are. These are full-body channelers or demonically possessed people. And supposedly there are a lot of them out there right now. And they're involved in organizations. The second type of channeling is called conscious channeling. And it occurs when these unseen entities or supposed extraterrestrials join the human in his or her body. The human is conscious of this joining and provides a vehicle for this entity to work through. Now, in New Age terminology, this is often referred to as twin souls. So if you see the word twin soul, you know these are conscious channelers. And oftentimes, if you read a manuscript or a book by a channeler, he or she will often mention, I have two souls. I'm a twin soul. The third type of channeling is called trance channeling. And it occurs when a human individual enters into a trance-like state. So they're not conscious of this entity coming in and utilizing this person's body and speaking directly through it. Now, this is very similar to what happens when an apparition of the Virgin Mary occurs. The visionary enters into a trance-like state. And it's usually only that person or a group of people that can see the Virgin or the supposed apparition. Oftentimes, their bodies contort. Their eyes roll back in their heads. It's a really frightening thing to see these people. Now, when trance channeling is taking place, there's usually another individual there who's transcribing or writing these messages down, because the trance channeler is unconscious to what's going on. And as a result of all these channelings, numerous books are written and published. And in fact, if you walk into a New Age bookstore, 80 to 90% of the material in there is channeled. And I mentioned Ashtar's book at the beginning, The New World Order. That's a channeled manuscript. Okay. So we can see that channeling is strikingly similar to demonic possession, whereby a possessed person succumbs to this unseen entity or demon's power. And in so doing, their entire being or will are taken over by that entity, by that demon. And I often wonder how many thousands of people are actually becoming possessed or are possessed by demonic entities today.
We are full three-dimensionally. I've seen them since 1994. I had a blinding apparition of Jesus Christ appear to me, and within days I could see the dead. I could see them as not in a dream state, in an awaking state, in a full three-dimensional light. I can count the stitches on their robes. And I've seen over 150 ghosts in that perfection in my life. So one night, I wake up. When they come, there's a jolt of electricity in my body, which I would love to measure on a voltmeter if I could.
Okay.
Well, what's amazing, John, is first of all, when you see something like that with your own eyes, and they're not fuzzy and faint. And tonight, my wife is doing talking to her angels, and I see it on the night vision camera. Now that's the first time I've seen it. The night vision camera records a ball of light the size of a human head, very soft, very visible, and going into my daughter's head. And when I woke up the next morning, that experience almost 2 years ago now, my wife said, well, last night I was praying to my angel guides to ask them to check to see if my womb is going to be okay because I have fibromyalgia, and am I going to be okay to get pregnant? And I went, oh my God, they really do listen to her, and they do show up. And what the real truth is here is there are probably, when we ask for it, angelic assistance. Most of us don't necessarily see it as visible as I do, or as I now can see, a night vision camera can see it. But the angels really do come when you ask for them. They really do. And what's great about the science of a camera like this, or having a mystical experience where you see it, is you realize you're not wasting your time when you're asking your angels for guidance. They really are there. And some people feel them. They get goosebumps. They feel something is happening. Hold it near it. That coil, that receiver coil with no energy, will start to radiate with energy because it's receiving the transmission. We're kind of the same way. And what happens is super high energy beings, basically because we're such a weak energy field, they fry our circuit. This is why I believe the God of Moses warned the people, he put markers around the mountain, because if you get too close, you are going to burn, you're going to fry. And Moses somehow had trained and did mystic practices like like I mentioned, some of these Catholic saints who can be in these high energy fields of fire and they don't even burn. He was able to withstand the super powerful vibrations of his God. Now, I think in the fourth kind, it was kind of very similar to that. The new children being born into the new sun and the new energy, their DNA is getting imprinted with this kind of information. And their abilities, we're not prepared in the Western world to understand and deal with some of these abilities. And I've seen